Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about the very interesting fight that, of course, ended up happening today within that of the heavyweight division between that of Mr. Oleksandr Usyk and Daniel Dubois. And of course, this fight was going to happen today. I believe that the fight ended up happening in that of Warsaw, Poland, or wherever this fight ended up happening in. It was a very interesting fight, and unfortunately, because once again, I did not really know that this fight was about to take place until yesterday, I'm going to have to take a look at the boxing schedule a little bit more to see what other big fights are going to be on the horizon. But unfortunately, I was not able to put out a fight prediction. My fight prediction probably would have been, though, that Oleksandr Usyk would have won either by that of ladder stoppage, somewhere within that of anywhere from the 8 to 10 round range. And I believe that I was pretty much correct on that mark because I think he ended up getting the knockout and stoppage in that of the ninth round, or that he would have won by that of unanimous decision. And the reason why I would have predicted that is because Oleksandr Usyk, he's just much more skilled than that of Daniel Dubois. He has better movement, he has better defense, he can fight more in a multitude of ways. That being said, one certainly can say that Oleksandr Usyk, that he did show one weakness in this fight, and that was some of the body shots that he ended up taking from that Mr. Daniel Dubois. Now, let me also talk about this because a certain amount of people, of course, are going to bring this up and think that this was controversial. Of course, Oleksandr Usyk, he ended up getting dropped in the fifth round, I believe. Some would call it a low blow, some would call it an official body shot. It was on the borderline, kind of between that of a low blow and a legal punch, in my view. It was directly in the middle of the belt line, not really slightly above, not really, too much below. In my view, when you're on the borderline like that, I don't really have a problem with the ref calling it either legal or illegal. It's kind of just up to the referee. That was pretty much a very similar punch that Andre Ward landed on that of Mr. Sergey Kovalev. In my view, that punch, just in my personal opinion, is probably a bit low for my usual standards, just because if you're hitting that far down on the belt line, in my view, it's getting a little bit too low. I don't necessarily mind a punch, in my view, that is right, somewhat right above the belt line or hitting half of the belt line. But this punch was pretty much directly 100% on that of the belt line, right in the middle. Once again, some people would say that that's a legal shot. I can't necessarily argue that, but one also cannot necessarily 100% dispute that, in certain discounts that could be counted as an illegal blow as well. So once again, in my view, just on my personal view, it's a little bit low overall for what I would like a punch to be at, but I would understand for certain people saying that it was a legal blow. In my view, it was an illegal blow. I thought that personally, in my view, that it was a bit too low, just in my view. But I understand for those of you that say it was legal. That being said, and just to kind of talk about that, because there is going to be a certain amount of the people, especially that of the LDBC and new media channels, and a certain amount of the fans that follow them. Who am I talking about necessarily? Basically, the pro-blackities, the guy overall who are, a part of the pro-black cult known as the LDBC and new media, the victimization mentality cult. When it comes down to it, they're going to say that Usyk should have lost this fight. And they're going to say that, well, we can no longer have Usyk within our top pound for pound rankings or our top five because he really should have lost this fight and blah blah blah. Because once again, what their main objective and what their main goal is to basically make sure that people like Oleksandr Usyk or Tyson Fury or Canelo Alvarez or Naoya Inoue, people like those guys, that they never get overall that pound for pound acclaim. So they're not remembered as all time great fighters. That's what their main objective is. So even though they never talked as much about Usyk in the past, they're going to talk about him a lot within the next couple of weeks because, once again, their objective is to make sure that fighters like Usyk do not get high on the pound for pound list and are not remembered as all-time great fighters. So I just thought that I would talk about that really quickly. That being said, Usyk, in my view, did show an inability to have great defense against that of the body shots. There was a multitude of right crosses or right uppercuts that Daniel Dubois would throw to the body. Usyk did handle them a little bit better later on within the fight. But a lot like Mr. Vasily Lomachenko, It appears that Usyk and that of Lomachenko, that they were never taught really how to block body blows, at least overall from that angle, as properly as what they should have been. And when it comes down to it, Usyk might benefit from possibly turning when it comes down to it to the left when it comes to a right hand, so it hits that of the elbow or that of the forearm. I did not see him try to turn into the punch so it hits his forearm or his elbow. I also did not see any attempt to try and go into that of a Philly shell. Not saying that Usyk is not capable necessarily of some of these abilities, but this is a very similar problem that I've seen with Vasily Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez and also against Devin Haney, which is that they're both extremely good or great defensive fighters, but that is one area that they definitely could improve upon. They need to learn how to block the body blows a little bit better, because almost every single punch that Daniel Dubois was landing to the body, and maybe I'd have to rewatch it, but Usyk very clearly was unhappy with some of the body shots that Mr. Daniel Dubois was landing. He was looking at the referee constantly, and he was basically saying, what are you going to do about this? Because I believe that it's low. But in my personal opinion, besides that one punch that ended up knocking him down within that of the 5th round, I'm not quite sure if any of the other body shots were low. So at the end of the day, Usyk is going to have to be trained, in my view, to kind of block those, especially if he does end up facing that of a Deontay Wilder or that of a Tyson Fury. Those guys are going to be much bigger than him, and trust me, the level of power that those guys are going to have, it's probably going to be completely different than what he's ever felt. Now, some people may say, what are you talking about? He fought Anthony Joshua already, someone who's probably more powerful than that of Tyson Fury. Yes, but Tyson Fury, not only is he a big man, but on top of that, he's a decent amount more accurate and overall better with his punches than what an Anthony Joshua was. Anthony Joshua very rarely ever even landed anything on Mr. Oleksandr Usyk in their fights because he was so afraid to throw certain punches because he knew Usyk was better with his feet. He knew he had better head movement. He knew that he was better at counterpunching on the inside. He knew that he was pretty much better in every category other than that of size and overall just pure raw power. That was really the only advantages that Anthony Joshua had. However, I will say this, it is going to be very interesting to see how Oleksandr Usyk would be able to handle that of a Tyson Fury, or how would he be able to handle that of a Deontay Wilder. We all know that certain people have been calling for that of the Oleksandr Usyk and Deontay Wilder fight, and I'll say this, before I thought that that was already a 50-50 fight. If Deontay Wilder ends up landing one of those right hands to the body of Mr. Oleksandr Usyk, how would he take it? And there's no guarantee that Wilder, of course, like he wouldn't land a right hand anyway, but that would be a very interesting fight. I would love to see that fight just to see how Usyk would be able to handle it and also how Mr. Deontay Wilder would be able to handle it. But especially Oleksandr Usyk, because he is going to have to be more offensive in that fight. He's going to have to really try and show at times who is boss. And Usyk, kind of like Lomachenko as well at times, and he's a little bit better at it than what Lomachenko is. But at times, he is also a little bit tentative to throw when he believes that he's going to get hit back in return. Not meaning overall that, he does not have a great chin. He does have a great chin. I don't even believe Usyk's ever been knocked down before, at least to my recollection. I've never seen it in one of his fights, but maybe he has. I can't remember. But, Usyk, when it comes down to it, there is going to be times where he's going to have to get more on the inside and risk possibly getting hit just to get the better of the exchanges. Not necessarily put yourself in a great amount of harm's way, but there is going to be times where you have to put yourself on the inside to pretty much risk it to get the biscuit, to keep your belts that are on the line. He is going to have to do that against both Tyson Fury and that against Deontay Wilder, because even though he probably would be better, at least against Deontay Wilder in certain categories, that mid-range game is not going to work the whole entire time, because Deontay Wilder, he's just bigger than you. He's 6'7" with about an 80-something inch arm reach. Usyk, I can't remember what his arm reach is, but he has a 78-inch arm reach, I believe, which is pretty good for his size, and he's only 6'3". And Deontay Wilder, once again, has a hand cannon for that of a right arm. So if that fight were to occur, Usyk, in my view, would have to, do things just a little bit differently for that fight when it comes down to it. So once again, that would be a very interesting fight. I would love to see that fight because that truly is a fight that could potentially go either way. It would be very, very particularly interesting to see who would end up winning that fight. Or maybe against Joe Joyce, or maybe against Tyson Fury, of course. But that's pretty much the fight that everybody wants to see. I would also like to see Joe Joyce. I would also like to see, possibly a couple of other fights. Of course, there's Jared Anderson out there. I don't think that fight's going to happen because I think Jared Anderson is kind of being built up for that of the next generation. So I don't think he's more than likely going to fight any of the most recent great contenders or recent champions. I could be wrong, but we'll see about that. Maybe Anthony Joshua later on down the line, but probably not at the moment. But we'll see what ends up happening, with Mr. Oleksandr Usyk. But I thought that this fight, I thought that it was a good showing of his skills. But once again, it did show that one weakness in Mr. Oleksandr Usyk's game. And let me also give him credit because when he did need to try and exchange with Daniel Dubois, he did eventually go forward, even at times when he was getting hit, showing that he could handle that ability a little bit better than that of Vasily Lomachenko. Even though Lomachenko, he did show in the Devin Haney fight that, he was willing to exchange a little bit more than what he did in the Teofimo Lopez fight. But, I give Oleksandr Usyk a great amount of credit in this fight. Daniel Dubois, is he an A-grade level fighter in my view? No, he's not. He has already been knocked out before, and he was knocked out again in this fight. I'm not really surprised, but at the end of the day, it still was a good showing. In my view, I had Oleksandr Usyk basically winning every round, I think, except that of the third round. Maybe more of you guys gave Daniel Dubois more rounds. I personally did not. I just thought that he was too stiff, which is a concern that I had going into this fight. He's not a guy that's great on the back foot. He does not have good defense. He's basically a weaker version of Anthony Joshua, except with even less head movement and on top of that, even less ability. There was no way that Dubois, in my view, was going to beat Usyk unless he got him with the right punch, which some of you may debate happened in round 5. In my view, the punch was a little bit low. But it is what it is. Anyways, I just thought that I would talk about that because Usyk, of course, is always a joy to watch. He's one of the top fighters in the world. But I'm going to be very interested to see if Usyk does end up fighting a fighter like a Deontay Wilder or someone that truly knows how to exchange with him, even when he pressures them. How is he going to react to that? It's going to be very interesting because Lomachenko, who fought, a little bit similarly, he did have a little bit of problems with that of Teofimo Lopez and certain other fighters that had the slight reach advantage and the power advantage. And at times he was so afraid of getting hit to the body or getting countered in return that he gave up so many rounds. Even though, of course, he may have been the more accurate puncher at certain times, but he was not throwing more. So once again, it's going to be very interesting to see where Usyk goes from here. I would love to see a Deontay Wilder fight because that would truly reveal everything about Usyk, about all the possible questions, or that I would need answers for. It would be a very interesting fight. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. But once again, look for the LDBC and new media channels to claim overall that Usyk is now overrated and that they may even drop him from their top 10 pound per pound list. Even though they did not drop Jamel Charlo when he should have lost to Brian Castano the first time, or they didn't drop Deontay Wilder until he was knocked out, and then, they made the excuse that he was cheated, and all this other stuff. But, it is what it is. You don't expect those people to be logical because they're fans. And at the end of the day, they have a very big racial agenda to play out. So it is what it is. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Very interesting fight. Very good performance by Usyk. I don't think that it was great. I mean, in certain regards it was because, of course, he ended up getting the stoppage. But he did show a little bit of softness to the body. He is going to have to improve his defense to the body. And that can, pretty easily be fixed. But he is going to have to improve that. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.